Hello, it's Paul Hurst here from Paul on Twitter, from Paul's iPhone on YouTube. Here today with a quick introduction to Micro Four Thirds technology and certainly a camera that I'm familiar with, which is the Olympus OM-D EM5. So I just want to give you a few pointers to anybody out there that's looking for more information on Micro Four Thirds. There's lots of different camera formats available. And you know, some of the data out there can be confusing, especially if you're not too sure what's what. So hopefully this couple of minutes will be well spent for you if you're in the market for a new camera. So here we've got the OM-D EM5, which is a Micro Four Thirds camera from Olympus. It's styled on the old style SLR kind of, a bit retro really. And that is really nice. I think when I was a child I associated cameras with kind of well-built heavy pieces of kit, and certainly in the recent years they've gone away from that. When I got back into photography in 2004, my first camera was, you know, a lot of money, but it was very plasticky and it was digital, so did a great job, all 6 megapixels of it. But it was a plasticky kind of fragile experience. So it's nice to see the cameras going back to something more rugged and durable. The Olympus is weather sealed, which means it can put up with a moderate degree of water and things like that. But obviously that doesn't make the camera waterproof, so it can't go underwater at all, and should really be kept out of dusty environments, although like I say, it is certainly more weather sealed than other cameras. It's got the kit lens on at the moment, the 12 to 50mm. It's a beautiful lens that gives you the equivalent range of 24 to 100, I think. Sorry for the focusing issues here. I'm using a new iPhone app which gives it a nice cinema look, as you can see, because I don't know how to change that, but I've locked the focus so that hopefully it's not consistently trying to hunt for a new point of focus. But anyway, back to the camera. So yeah, this is a kit lens that comes with the kit. It can be bought separately if you buy the camera body only, but it's a really nice lens, a couple of nice little features. It's got power zoom on it, 2 kinds of power zoom which are kind of activated by pulling the zoom ring forward or backwards. You've got a more traditional twist zoom which is quite quick, or you've got a power zoom which zooms in and out in increments. And again, that can be handy, especially if you're in video mode and you want a nice smooth zoom in on something. But remember folks, no tromboning. That's where you zoom in and out lots of times. It's a video no-no. Anyway, so like I say, a great little lens here. I've got some other lenses to show you, which help to show the versatility of Micro Four Thirds. But just before I do that, I just want to highlight something that I have noticed with the Olympus, and it's just worth making note of. First of all, when we take the lens off, and you'll appreciate it's quite hard to do one-handed, but I've managed it, there we go. So it looks like a standard lens, and it pretty much is in that regard. Looking at the camera now, you can see the Micro Four Thirds sensor there. Now this is quite important. That is the sensor. So if you get dust or dirt on there, or if the sensor gets scratched, then it's a very expensive kind of repair process. Or your pictures can just carry the dust on them, and kind of it starts to look messy and you start having to clone things out on the photo editing app. So please, please, please bear that in mind when you're changing the lens, you know, especially if you're outdoors. Make sure that you change the lens in such a way that you're going to prevent anything from getting on there, because you don't want to, you know, it's a lot of money and you want the best possible quality from the camera. So I was trying to put that on, but to be honest it needs to stay off. I'm going to put some of the other lenses on anyway. So please be aware of that. There is no lens guard on there, and that can be an issue. Okay, the camera itself, just before I move on, has got the attached battery grip. Olympus were giving this away free when they launched the camera. I didn't buy it then, so I had to buy the battery grip and the battery separate. I didn't get any special offers, and now Olympus have released another special offer where if you buy this camera at the time of shooting, you get a free portrait lens. So talk about unlucky. When I bought this camera, I got absolutely nothing. So if you're listening Olympus and you want to be really kind, then contact me below, and I'd be very grateful. I'd do a nice review video for you for the lens. So yeah, so you know, another incentive. I know times are tough at the moment. There's not plenty of money swirling around. So anything like that is obviously a benefit to get your lens collection underway. Talking about lens collection, I've got 2 extra lenses that I shoot with this. This one's quite special. It's actually for a Leica camera. I used to shoot with Leica digital cameras and film cameras, and this is kind of a remnant of those days. I've kept this lens over. It's a beautiful, fully manual lens, obviously no autofocus. And it's a prime lens. It's a 50mm, so it comes out at 100 on there, which means it's interesting to shoot with. You have to have a bit of distance between you and the subject, but it's f1.4, so it's a really quick lens in terms of how much light it lets through, and that means it's very, very good for portrait. So for example, a standard lens on a camera, maybe f4, so it lets through kind of that much light. You know, on a point and shoot camera, around about f4. Some are doing f2 now, but this lens goes all the way to f1.5, and look how much extra light comes through then. The aperture's much wider, and that's great for bokeh, which is nice soft out of focus areas. I mentioned this was for the Leica, and as such it has on it a I can't take this one off. Oh yes, I can. There we go. It's got a M mount to Micro Four Thirds adapter. This one's by Panasonic, because I did used to own a Panasonic Micro Four Thirds camera, a Lumix, and obviously the adapter works fine for both Olympus and Panasonic. It's the same fitting, so I've obviously kept that adapter over. Those are quite expensive. Shop around for those if you're after one of those. That would be my advice. You can buy them on eBay. They are a lot cheaper on there. Be careful, because they do need to be relatively well engineered if they're going to yield good results. So with that adapter, pretty much any of the Leica M-mount lenses can be used on your Micro Four Thirds camera. And then we move to this lens, which is by a German company called Voigtlander. It's actually Japanese now. It's been bought out, Cosina Voigtlander. This doesn't need an adapter. It's a very heavy lens. It doesn't need an adapter. It is actually made for 4/3. It's got the 4/3 Consortia logo on there. And again, this is a fast lens. So this is even faster than the one I've just shown you. So if we look at around about f4 or f2.8, I think that's f2.8. So some of the cameras now support f2.8, which is that kind of aperture. This goes to f0.95. So again, it's letting a lot of light in. And f0.95 is one of the fastest production lenses in the world. I mean, to get a faster lens than that, you're kind of looking at like CCTV lenses and things like that, and they don't let in a lot more light than that, it's got to be said. The quality of this lens is great. It's very heavy, very well built, very smooth to operate. It is an expensive lens. This lens is nearly worth as much as the camera, so you do need to bear that in mind. But if you don't want to use a flash, or you want a really subtle effect for indoors photography, then this lens is great. Obviously, it's more of a challenge if you want to use it outdoors. You'd probably need some neutral density filters on there to block some of the light if you wanted to shoot with a lens what's called wide open, which is what that is. So there's a quick rundown of some of the lenses and the camera. I just want to kind of give you a few more tips just before I go about 4/3 and my advice on shooting them and how to get the best out of them. I can speak for both the Panasonic and Olympus 4/3 cameras, which I think are the main ones on the market. I'm not completely sure, but they're the main partners in this consortium of micro 4/3. I believe, I may be wrong, correct me if I am. The cameras are great, they work great. So what I would say, my first piece of advice is, having shot with both models, is the raw files that come out of these are quite robust, which means that they can be edited. And they store quite a lot of detail, so they're quite nice. The first generation micro 4/3 weren't great, they didn't keep a lot of detail. Obviously the sensor on there is much smaller than a full frame sensor, so the data which it kind of captures is different. There's a different amount of data that's captured by a sensor such as that. But it is worth saying that the current flock, if you like, of micro 4/3 do a great job, a really, really, really good job of saving all that data. So that's well worth pointing out and well worth taking into account if you're looking for a 4/3 camera and you're kind of shooting semi-pro or hobbyist. You are going to get the results that you need from this. The dynamic range of these cameras is also very good and is approaching APS-C size sensors, which we would find in most kind of compact digital SLRs. So not the full digital SLRs, but the cheaper models generally use APS-C size sensors. So that leads us to another point about megapixels, and this again is really important. A common mistake that a lot of people make when they're buying a digital camera is they only look at the number of megapixels on offer, and that doesn't tell you the whole story at all. Sometimes less is more. Okay, so this camera, you're going to ask me how many megapixels it's got, and the answer is I don't really know. I don't know whether it's 16 or something like that. It's around that kind of area, but that's how much preference I give to megapixels. I can't even quite remember how many it's got. The end result is what counts, and the end result is made up of things such as noise, digital noise that's on the picture, and that dynamic range as well. And the great thing about these cameras is that they are great in low light now. This one in particular is fantastic low light shooter, so you can shoot easily up to ISO 800 or 1600 and noise is not an issue on this. So if you couple that with that nice beautiful lens f/0.95, then you're going to get some really nice results. I will try and post a link to my Flickr set with pictures from this camera so you can judge for yourself. So that's a little bit about that. Don't be taken in by massive amounts of megapixels. Sometimes that can mean a noisier image in low light, especially if the megapixels are all crammed onto a smaller than full frame sensor. By full frame we mean 35mm, same as film. That's classed as a full frame sensor, and this is obviously considerably smaller than a full frame sensor, but it's considerably larger than a point and shoot camera. So a pocket camera, the point and shoot is the sensor on this is much bigger than that. Again, it's got a real heft to it. Feels great to hold this camera, especially with that grip. I really can't recommend that high enough. Doubles your battery life as well, an extra battery in there. And I have found that that is useful if you're out on a day's shoot or if the weather's a bit cold and it affects the battery life adversely, then it's nice to have another battery in there. The final thing that I'm coming up to on 15 minutes on the video is video. I'm shooting this on an iPhone at the moment, but this shoots wonderful high definition video. Has to be seen to be believed. And again, one of the reasons is because of a very nifty piece of technology inside there, which offers some great image stabilization. It's built into the body of the camera, which means that any lens you put onto here can benefit from the image stabilization in photograph mode. So if you're taking photographs, say this was a 1960s Leica lens, which it isn't, but if it was, it would all of a sudden have image stabilization still, because the technology is built into the body. Now be careful, because some of the other manufacturers don't do that. They build it into the lenses, which makes the lenses more expensive, and like I say, not all your lenses will have that capability. So thumbs up to Olympus for doing that. That's a great decision, and it means that everybody gets some kind of benefit. Okay, so back to the video mode. The image stabilization doesn't work with legacy lenses like these. So lenses that don't have kind of the circuitry built into them will not actually benefit in video mode. Now again, I might be wrong there. Olympus may have changed that with a firmware update. I don't know. But my experience is that with the kit lens on, in video mode, the footage is a lot smoother. There's a lot less wobble. And when you're walking, for example, it's much smoother footage if you're using a kit lens. And it seems to be that the kit lens in video mode engages the image stabilization on a full-time basis, so you can actually hear it whirring away with that lens on. The second you put one of these on and go into video mode, you can't hear the noise, and the footage isn't as smooth. Now that's not too bad at wider angles. Okay, so when the angle's very wide, wobble is not as much of an issue. But if you have a telephoto lens on there, then it can be a big issue, because obviously it's a zoomed in view and wobble becomes much more apparent. So you need to bear that in mind. If you want to shoot some nice smooth kind of zoomed in video, telephoto video, then you would be better, if you're in looking for a lens, you would be better double checking that the lens you buy does support the image stabilization in video mode if you're buying an Olympus. I don't know whether, like I say, Olympus have changed that. They may do in a firmware upgrade so that the image stabilization is constantly on with other lenses as well, but certainly on my camera, which hasn't had a firmware upgrade, no such capability exists. That's pretty much it from me. I've got another nice tutorial, well I think it's nice anyway, on how to get some nice results out of this, how to make your pictures pop with the OM-D EM5. So check out my YouTube channel for that if you've got one of these cameras. If you've got any questions on Micro Four Thirds, please do feel free to post them on here. There are a few great websites out there, Micro Four Thirds blog, photography blog, couple of others, and the community is very helpful on those sites certainly, but I'm more than happy to try and answer any questions that any beginners may have. Anybody who's got an Olympus and they may want my advice or help with anything, then I'm more than happy to try and help you out with that and get some creative ideas flowing as well. I'm going to be producing some new videos on some of the different modes that are on this particular camera. You've got some art modes, which I use an awful lot, and in fact I'm going to give you this as my last tip. The art filters on this camera, obviously they're not going to be to everyone's liking. Sometimes they're a bit over the top, but you know what, some of them are great. High contrast black and white photos, really nice effects that can give your images something different, especially if the weather's not great and you still want to go out and take some photographs. Then you can really pep up the images by using some of the art filters. So I'd really recommend them. They are fantastic. But what happens when you shoot on art filter mode? The camera takes a JPEG and it applies the art filter to the photograph. So that means when you put your memory card in your computer that you've got what you've got. So my advice is simple. On the menu, you can change the settings so that the camera takes both a JPEG with the art filter applied and a raw image. The raw image is every bit of data that the sensor picks up and the camera does nothing to it. It assumes that you're going to do it in what's called post-production. So there's no sharpening applied, no contrast, no saturation. It's just as the sensor itself saw the image coming through the lens. So by setting your camera to capture both of those, not only is it a fail-safe, but you can get some really nice effects if you blend that raw file back in with some of the art filters on here, and it can make for a really nice effect. That's what my other video is about, so there's a sneak preview of that, but I do actually go into detail, show you exactly how to do it with the OM-D EM5. Have some great fun with your photography. I do hope this video has been useful introduction to people out there who want to know a little bit more about Micro Four Thirds, certainly from the standpoint of quality and usability, but also for anybody out there who's looking for more information on this fantastic camera from Olympus, which I cannot recommend highly enough. And I've owned a lot of cameras from Leicas, Panasonics, Fuji as well. It's fair to say a lot of my money has gone west on camera equipment, but so far this camera is doing such a great job that I don't think it will be going anywhere soon. Unlike me, I've got to go. Thanks very much for your time. If you're still listening, you deserve a medal. Let me tell you, all the very best. Any questions, let me know. This is Paul Hurst from Paul on Twitter and from Paul's iPhone on YouTube. Signing out, goodbye and God bless.